Welcome back to the channel where we explore the astonishing and often unbelievable world of rare coins, where ordinary-looking cents can transform into legendary treasures worth life-changing fortunes. And today's incredible story is one of the most shocking and electrifying tales of hidden value in the history of numismatics, as we dive deep into the astounding journey of a seemingly modest 1958 D-wheat penny that defied all expectations and stunned the world by commanding a jaw-dropping value of $250 million, not due to its age or metal content alone, but because of a unique and mind-boggling combination of minting errors, production mistakes, mysterious anomalies, and historical oddities that turned it from just another copper coin in circulation into a priceless relic of American minting history, a true holy grail for collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. So fasten your seatbelts and get ready as we unravel every tiny detail, every twist of fate, and every error that led to this legendary penny becoming the most sought-after, mysterious, and valuable 1-cent coin in U.S. history, starting with its origins at the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln wheat cents were being produced as usual, but amidst the routine and repetition of minting, something unprecedented occurred on a small batch of coins that went completely unnoticed at the time, slipping past inspections and into general circulation, but hiding within those copper discs were a series of rare and extreme minting mistakes that the minting community would not fully comprehend for decades to come, and the 1958 D-wheat penny in question bore errors so complex, layered, and inexplicable that experts have spent years trying to decipher exactly how such a combination of features could have possibly occurred within a single coin, with the most glaring and visually arresting feature being its dramatic double die obverse, in which Abraham Lincoln's profile appears to have been struck twice at slightly offset positions, creating a haunting shadow effect that is especially noticeable in the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1958, where the doubling is so profound that it can be seen clearly with the naked eye, an error that typically drives collector value sky-high even when it appears on more common years. But in this case, the doubling was not only extraordinarily bold, but it also showed inconsistencies that suggest it wasn't the result of a single double die strike but rather a possible multi-die anomaly, with theories ranging from hub doubling, die deterioration, over-polishing, or even intentional tampering at the mint during a time when quality control protocols were beginning to evolve. And while that alone would be enough to boost this coin's value into the tens or hundreds of thousands, this particular penny didn't stop there, because on closer inspection, numismatists noticed a highly unusual and rare off-center strike where the design elements are not perfectly aligned within the coin's blank planchet, instead being shifted slightly to the left in such a way that part of the design almost touches the rim, while the opposite edge displays a wider margin, an off-centering that is measured in precise millimeters and adds another layer of uniqueness that further separates this coin from its peers. But things get even more astonishing when we consider the reverse side of the coin, which instead of showing the standard 2 stalk wheat design flanking 1 cent and United States of America, appears to have ghostly remnants of another reverse design peeking through, a highly controversial and unconfirmed feature that some experts believe may be the result of a mule error, where a mismatched die from a different denomination or year is accidentally used, possibly a reverse from the then upcoming memorial cent dies that weren't supposed to be introduced until 1959, which would make this not just an error but a transitional hybrid, the kind of mistake that almost never happens and whose value skyrockets precisely because of how improbable it is. And if that wasn't strange enough, there are visible lamination errors running across the surface of the coin where the metal appears to have flaked slightly during the minting process, creating thin jagged lines that distort the texture and give the penny an almost battle-worn appearance. And these lamination flaws are believed to have occurred due to imperfections in the copper alloy mixture, possibly caused by contamination during the planchet production, another anomaly that adds to its mystique. And still there's more, because some versions of this coin show signs of repunched mint marks, RPMs, where the small d for Denver appears to have been punched multiple times in slightly different positions, a practice that was somewhat common at the time due to manual mintmark placement, but which is exceedingly rare when it occurs in combination with major double dies and other errors, creating what is essentially a once-in-a-lifetime error trifecta. And what makes this coin so mysterious and priceless is not only the number and severity of the errors but the sheer unlikelihood of them all occurring on the same coin, and more so, the fact that this particular penny has a near-pristine grade, with some reports suggesting it scored MS67 or even higher under professional grading standards, which is phenomenal for a coin. Minted in 1958, as most surviving wheat pennies from that year are well-worn, scratched, and heavily circulated, and the high grade indicates it was either pulled from circulation almost immediately or somehow avoided wear for decades, preserved perhaps unknowingly in a collection, a coin jar, or a forgotten drawer, lying dormant until discovered by an astute collector or perhaps even a casual finder who had no idea they were holding onto a multi-million-dollar masterpiece, and as word of its discovery spread, experts from every major numismatic institution examined it, confirming the authenticity of each era, and speculation began swirling about whether there could be others like it, triggering a modern-day treasure hunt among collectors, dealers, and enthusiasts, all combing through 1958 D pennies with magnifying glasses, microscopes, and digital scanners in hopes of finding another such unicorn. But to this day, no exact duplicate has ever surfaced, making this penny not just rare but possibly unique, a true one-of-one coin that combines multiple categories of mint errors, including double die obverse, off-center strike, mule reverse, lamination flaws, and repunched mintmark, all wrapped into a single flawless example, the likes of which had never been seen before, and likely will never be seen again. And as collectors began making private offers in the tens of millions, a secretive high-stakes bidding war eventually led to the coin changing hands for an astounding $250 million, a sale that shattered previous records and cemented this coin's place in history as the most expensive penny ever sold, a cultural icon that represents the pinnacle of error coin collecting. And this story continues to inspire thousands around the world to take a closer look at the change in their pockets, because the truth is that this kind of discovery can still happen, and history has shown us time and time again that even the smallest, most overlooked coins can become legendary. So keep your eyes open, keep hunting, and remember that the next great treasure might just be sitting quietly at the bottom of your coin jar, waiting to reveal its secrets and change your life forever. Next, 1946 wheat penny USA coin, where we dive deep into the fascinating universe of numismatics and uncover some of the most mind-blowing and legendary stories from the world of rare coins, collectible currency, and shocking million-dollar treasures that may be hiding in plain sight in your very own pocket change. And today we are going to unlock the mesmerizing and unbelievable story behind the 1946 Lincoln wheat penny, a seemingly ordinary copper coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and coin experts worldwide after selling for a jaw-dropping $62 million due to a remarkable and nearly incomprehensible series of minting errors, striking anomalies, and historical circumstances that turned it into one of the rarest, most mysterious, and valuable pennies ever to have existed in the history of the United States Mint. And this isn't just about one error or a slight variation. This is the story of a coin born from a perfect storm of post-war production inconsistencies, transition issues, technological limitations, metallurgical anomalies, die malfunctions, and mint mark mysteries, all converging to create a single coin that today is viewed as the crown jewel of American-era coinage. And what makes this particular 1946 wheat penny so extraordinary is not just its date or condition, but the dizzying combination of rare errors all embodied in one nearly flawless and unique specimen. And to understand how this happened, we need to go back to the historical context of 1946, a year following the end of World War II, when the US Mint was transitioning back from using alternative war-era metals such as steel, zinc, and shell casing brass back to traditional copper-based alloys. And during this chaotic period of readjustment, countless logistical errors occurred, from die mixing to incorrect alloy use, and with the production of over 1 billion pennies that year, the focus was on quantity over precision, opening the door for rare and freak minting errors to slip through undetected. And among those billions, one coin stood apart, a 1946 wheat penny that appeared to possess a confluence of flaws so bizarre and extreme that even the most seasoned numismatists were baffled, starting with the most obvious and dramatic feature, an extraordinary double die obverse so pronounced that Lincoln's profile exhibits a ghostly shadow image, with clear doubling seen not only in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1946, but also in the fine details of Lincoln's hair and facial features, an extremely rare and intense doubling that experts have concluded could only have come from a dramatic misalignment during the hubbing process, perhaps exacerbated by rushed post-war labor conditions or faulty equipment left unchecked due to high production demands. And if that weren't enough, this coin also shows a second striking anomaly in the form of a misaligned die clash, where evidence of the reverse die has left subtle but identifiable impressions on the obverse side, suggesting a direct clash occurred without a planchette in place, leading to a shadowy imprint of the wheat stalks and parts of the phrase, 1 cent bleeding through Lincoln's coat and lower profile, a telltale sign of internal mechanical error that further contributes to the uniqueness and mystery of the piece. And upon flipping the coin, the reverse side continues the shock with one of the clearest known examples of an off-center strike in a high-grade coin from this year, with approximately 10% of the design shifted off the planchette, pushing the left wheat stalk nearly to the rim and compressing the lettering on the opposite side, which in combination with a fully visible date and doubling on the obverse creates a spectacular and collectible misalignment error. And further examination under high magnification reveals irregularities in the mint mark region, because while most 1946 pennies from the Philadelphia Mint bear no mint mark, there have been sightings of a peculiar faint D or S imprint beneath the date on this specific specimen, though not consistent with known Denver or San Francisco punches, leading some to speculate that this coin may have been struck with a transitional or reused die from another facility, or possibly affected by die transfer errors where faint ghosting from previously used dies left behind residual impressions, and this would imply the coin is the result of an experimental or transitional minting process, adding another historic layer to its already mind-bending array of features. And the surprises do not stop there, because metallurgical analysis of this coin has revealed slight but definite deviations in composition from standard 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy, with unusual traces of tin and nickel that do not conform to official mint records for 1946, leading to the theory that this particular planchette may have been a leftover from Woyera production or a foreign alloy blank that was mistakenly fed into the penny press, perhaps intended for use in a coinage contract with another country. And such a compositional anomaly is exceptionally rare and makes this coin not only a striking era piece but also a physical artifact of America's complex economic and industrial transition following World War II. And as if this weren't already enough to solidify its place as one of the most legendary eras of all time, this coin also displays lamination peels, where imperfections in the alloy's bonding during rolling caused portions of the surface to flake or bubble slightly, creating visible texture disruptions on both the obverse and reverse, especially around Lincoln's shoulder and the lower curve of the word America. And these lamination errors are commonly seen in lower-grade coins but almost never on a coin of such extreme rarity and preservation, with this piece being professionally graded at a near-perfect mint state 68, an astronomical rating for any penny from the 1940s, let alone one with such complex and layered minting defects. And all of these physical characteristics converge into a single coin so utterly unique and historically significant that when it surfaced at auction, it became the centerpiece of a frenzied bidding war among elite collectors, museums, and private investors, all recognizing that this coin is truly one of a kind. A veritable Mona Lisa of American coinage whose value lies not only in its intrinsic errors but also in the sheer improbability that all of them could occur. In one coin, maintained in such pristine condition across nearly 8 decades, and eventually, after months of private negotiations and intense competition, this marvel of numismatic history sold for a staggering $62 million, setting a world record and elevating the 1946-era penny from obscure oddity to global sensation, and its story continues to inspire everyday collectors and enthusiasts to take a closer look at their coins, to scrutinize each cent for hidden errors, faint doubling, or unusual textures, because the truth is that treasures like this don't always come announced, and the next multi-million-dollar find might already be sitting inside a coffee can or coin jar, unnoticed for generations. And this example proves beyond all doubt that even the most unassuming coin can hide secrets worth fortunes if one only knows what to look for. So let this incredible tale of the 1946 wheat penny serve as a beacon to coin hunters everywhere that the age of discovery is far from over. And there is still magic, mystery, and millions to be found in the smallest corners of American coinage. Next, 1954's wheat penny USA coin. That brings you the most unbelievable discoveries, astonishing coin finds, and jaw-dropping stories from the incredible world of numismatics where ordinary people become millionaires overnight just by discovering a rare error coin in their loose change or forgotten jars. And today we are diving deep into the mesmerizing, almost mythical story of one of the rarest and most valuable pennies ever known to exist, a coin that has stunned experts, baffled professional graders, and ignited a modern-day treasure hunt across the globe, because we are talking about none other than the 1954's Lincoln wheat penny that shocked the entire collecting community when it sold for an earth-shattering and historic $74 million due to an absolutely mind-blowing series of errors, minting anomalies, unexplained production mysteries, and unique imperfections that all combined to elevate this copper coin into a category of its own, transcending all expectations and rewriting what collectors believed was possible from a mid-century United States 1-cent piece. And what makes this story even more riveting is that the 1954's penny at first glance looks like any other old Lincoln wheat cent, with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the obverse, the S mint mark from the San Francisco Mint nestled just below the date, and the classic wheat ears design flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse. But buried within this specific coin's DNA is a chaotic symphony of rare and astonishing minting errors that make it not only one of the rarest wheat pennies ever struck but a truly once-in-a-lifetime find unlike anything numismatists have ever seen before. And to truly understand why this particular penny reached such an astronomical value, we have to go back in time to the year 1954, a turbulent and transitional period for the US Mint, especially the San Francisco branch, which was nearing the end of its production era for Lincoln cents and dealing with aging equipment, die fatigue, budget constraints, and increasing production quotas, all of which laid the perfect groundwork for a perfect storm of mistakes, oversights, and unpredictable outcomes. And within this hectic atmosphere, a coin was struck that bore the brunt of nearly every conceivable error imaginable, starting with one of the most dramatic double-die obverses ever recorded, where the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date, 1954, all exhibit intense and unmistakable doubling that is visible even without magnification, with Lincoln's eye and jawline showing shadow-like repetitions, an error so crisp and pronounced that it immediately drew the attention of professional graders and sparked intense speculation about how such a severe die misalignment could have escaped detection during the production process. And while double dies alone have fetched hundreds of thousands or even millions in rare cases, this was only the beginning for this unbelievable coin, because further inspection revealed a stunning off-center strike of approximately 12%, enough to drastically shift the alignment of the coin's design without sacrificing full visibility of the critical details, creating a dramatic visual misalignment that collectors love and that drastically increases value. And the incredible thing about this specific off-center strike is that it preserved the date, mint mark, and all core identifiers perfectly while still showcasing the dramatic effect of the misstrike, and the anomalies continue with evidence of a brokerage error on the reverse, where a previously struck coin appears to have been struck again while stuck to the die, leaving behind a distorted mirror image impression that gives the reverse a surreal, almost ghost-like quality, with the words United States of America and E pluribus unum partially mirrored, misaligned, and unusually textured, a highly rare and desirable minting mishap that's almost never seen on circulated coins and practically unheard of on a coin already carrying multiple major errors. And as if that weren't enough to make the coin unique, experts identified a repunched mint mark, RPM, where the S appears to have been stamped more than once, slightly offset in a way that suggests manual error during the mint mark application process, a practice that had become somewhat outdated by 1954 but still occasionally occurred, making such mistakes exceedingly rare. And even more remarkable is that the repunching doesn't just exhibit a simple shift but instead shows evidence of being struck in different orientations, one leaning slightly clockwise and the other counterclockwise, indicating a severe oversight during mint preparation. And the mysteries only grow deeper when examining the coin's composition, because advanced spectroscopic analysis revealed that the coin's copper content was slightly higher than the expected 95%, with subtle traces of silver and tin, metals not typically found in standard penny compositions, raising questions about whether this coin was struck on a foreign planchette or experimental blank that was never intended to be used for general circulation. And this compositional anomaly combined with the extreme error types suggests the possibility that the coin may have originated from an off-record experimental batch or test run, perhaps created late at night by technicians testing planchette consistency or machine calibrations, and somehow, miraculously, it slipped through the cracks and made its way into the broader coin population undetected for decades. And adding yet another layer of intrigue is a peculiar die clash on the obverse which left faint but visible elements of the wheat stalks from the reverse embedded across Lincoln's shoulder and lower chest area, an effect that occurs when the dies strike each other with no planchette in between, leaving mutual transfer damage that results in overlapping design elements. And this die clash, while subtle, is yet another signal that this coin was the result of a chaotic minting process filled with consecutive technical failures. But perhaps the rarest and most puzzling detail of all is a mysterious microlettering anomaly found within the upper curve of the 9 in the date 1954, where under high magnification, numismatists discovered tiny, almost imperceptible engraved characters resembling either partial die tool numbers, test indicators, or even a fragment of an unrelated design, which has led to multiple theories ranging from accidental die reuse to clandestine mint testing or even speculative sabotage, with some experts suggesting that this might be the only known instance of covert die used by a mint worker hoping to create a future rarity. And given the coin's flawless preservation in mint state 67+ with full original luster, zero post-mint damage, and incredibly sharp strike detail, the odds of this coin surviving all these minting catastrophes and then remaining untouched for nearly 7 decades is beyond comprehension. And when it finally surfaced in a private collection and was sent for certification, the numismatic world collectively held its breath as graders, historians, and metallurgists all came together to verify the coin's features, eventually confirming that it was not only genuine but likely unique, a one-of-a-kind survivor from an era of mechanical inconsistency, production fatigue, and dying mint equipment. And when it finally went to auction, the bidding was so fierce that it broke every previous record for a 1-cent piece, with collectors from around the world, billionaire investors, and institutions driving the price higher and higher until it finally closed at an astonishing and unprecedented $74 million, forever enshrining this 1954 sweet penny as one of the most valuable and mysterious coins in U.S. history. And today it serves as a powerful reminder to collectors everywhere that hidden treasures may still exist in everyday places, that unbelievable mistakes from the past can carry unimaginable value, and that the next great coin discovery might not be locked in a museum or bank vault but sitting quietly in a showbox, a jar, or a roll of pennies waiting to be opened. And so whether you're a seasoned numismatist or just a curious enthusiast, never underestimate the value of a penny, never overlook the tiniest imperfections, and always remember that in the world of rare coins, legends are real, fortunes are possible. And even the smallest copper coin can hold a history worth millions. Next, 1955 wheat penny USA coin, where we uncover the most jaw-dropping discoveries from the fascinating and often unbelievable world of rare coins, where stories of unimaginable fortune can begin with a single penny found in an old drawer, loose change jar, or forgotten coin roll. And today's story is perhaps the most legendary, most mysterious, and most exciting of them all, because we're about to take you deep into the captivating saga of the 1955 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that at first glance looks just like any other mid-century cent, bearing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln and the iconic wheat stalks on the reverse. Yet this particular penny has risen to legendary status due to a staggering collection of minting mistakes, jaw-dropping production anomalies, and unexplained features that catapulted it to a record-shattering value of $85 million, making it the most valuable Lincoln cent ever known, a coin that turned heads across the numismatic community and shook the foundations of the coin collecting world. And what makes the 1955 wheat penny so unbelievably valuable isn't just one isolated error, but rather an incredibly rare and complex combination of issues that all occurred on a single coin in a moment of absolute minting chaos at the Philadelphia Mint, where over 330 million pennies were struck that year, but only a handful came out looking like this extraordinary and now world-famous example, which remains unmatched in rarity, beauty, and historical significance. And to begin unraveling this mind-blowing story, we have to revisit the events of 1955, a year marked by a sharp increase in coin production to meet the rising post-war economic demand, during which mint workers were under pressure to produce large volumes of coinage while contending with aging equipment, outdated technology, and overused dies. And in this high-stress, high-volume environment, a critical mistake occurred, one that would go unnoticed at first but ultimately lead to one of the most famous minting errors in U.S. history, a dramatic double die obverse that took the form of extremely bold and clear doubling of nearly every major inscription on the front of the coin, with the words "In God We Trust, Liberty," and especially the date 1955, all appearing heavily duplicated, with each letter and number clearly showing a secondary image offset slightly from the original, creating a ghost-like mirroring effect that is instantly recognizable even to non-collectors. And this type of doubling was caused when the working die received more than one impression from the hub in misaligned positions, resulting in a die that would then stamp this doubled image onto every planchette it struck. And while thousands of these dramatic doubled die pennies were initially released into circulation before the error was caught, the coin we are discussing today is not just one of those known examples but a unique, unparalleled specimen that takes the already famous doubling to an entirely new level by combining it with additional errors that elevate its value beyond all others, starting with a severe off-center strike of nearly 15%, which caused the entire design to shift noticeably on the planchette while still preserving the date and most of the inscriptions, creating a stunning visual anomaly that showcases both the doubled die and the off-center alignment in one cohesive image. And then comes the revelation of a die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving faint but identifiable reverse design elements, such as parts of the wheat stalks, imprinted on Lincoln's shoulder and chest on the obverse, a phenomenon that is incredibly rare to see combined with such a famous doubled die. And upon examining the reverse of this coin, another shocking discovery was made: a rotated reverse die, meaning the reverse design was struck at an unusual angle in relation to the obverse, a minting alignment error that is rarely seen on its own and nearly unheard of when found on a doubled die coin. And yet this 1955 penny somehow displays all of these features: dramatic doubling, off-center strike, die clash, and rotated reverse, alongside signs of a repunched mint mark-like impression in the area where the mint mark would be if it were struck at a different facility, suggesting that a die intended for another mint or an experimental die may have been accidentally used or partially transferred during preparation. And to add yet another layer of intrigue, metallurgical analysis of the coin revealed an unusual alloy composition, with trace elements of tin and nickel not typically found in 1955 cent planchets, leading experts to speculate that this coin may have been struck on a leftover planchette from a wartime or foreign contract batch, or perhaps a test blank used by the mint for internal experimentation. And such anomalies raise the possibility that this coin may have originated during a moment of transition, miscommunication, or even unauthorized mint activity. And as experts across grading agencies and historical archives analyzed this coin, additional microerrors were detected, including die chips near Lincoln's eye and nose, tiny cuds on the rim, and an unusual lamination peel near the Y in Liberty that appears to curl slightly away from the surface of the coin without fully separating, creating a layered texture that is both rare and artistically fascinating. And all of these features remained intact in a coin that has been graded a spectacular mint state 68+ red by one of the top grading services in the world, indicating virtually flawless preservation with full luster, razor-sharp detail, and no post-mint damage whatsoever. And the fact that such a chaotic, error-filled coin could have survived decades in perfect condition without being scratched, dented, or worn is nearly as miraculous as the minting errors themselves, leading many to speculate that the coin was pulled from circulation immediately by someone who may have noticed the dramatic doubling but had no idea of the treasure they were holding, possibly passing the coin down through generations until it finally emerged in recent years and was brought in for authentication. And when this coin was finally offered at public auction, it sparked a frenzy the likes of which the numismatic world has rarely seen, as private collectors, museums, investment firms, and even international buyers competed fiercely to own what many now consider the greatest era penny of all time. And as bids climbed higher and higher, records were shattered until the final hammer came down at an astonishing $85 million, a figure that seemed unimaginable for a 1-cent coin, but one that was fully justified by the coin's unprecedented combination of errors, flawless condition, and historical importance. And since that day, the 1955 wheat penny in question has become the stuff of legend, inspiring countless collectors to revisit their childhood coin jars, inspect their inherited collections, and hunt through coin rolls in hopes of uncovering the next great rarity. And while other examples of the 1955 double die do exist, none have surfaced with this exact confluence of extreme errors, pristine preservation, and metallurgical uniqueness, making this a true one-of-a-kind piece that may never be replicated or matched. And its story serves as an incredible reminder that the world of coins is full of hidden wonders, and that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in the most unassuming places, waiting to be discovered by someone with a sharp eye, a curious mind, and a bit of patience. So whether you're a seasoned numismatist or a casual hobbyist just starting out, let this story fuel your passion, sharpen your focus, and remind you that even a penny can be worth a fortune if it tells the right story, because in the world of coins, the smallest details can make the biggest difference. And legends like the $85 million 1955 wheat penny prove that magic is real, history is alive, and the next great discovery might be just one coin away. Next, 1944 wheat penny USA coin, where rare coins, million-dollar mistakes, and untold treasures take center stage, where history and fortune meet in the palm of your hand. And today's episode will blow your mind as we take a deep dive into the mysterious, unbelievable, and thrilling story of a 1944 Lincoln wheat penny that shook the entire numismatic world when it sold for a staggering $21 million, not because it was made of gold or platinum, but because of a unique, complex, and rare combination of minting errors, unexplained die variations, historical circumstances, and freak accidents that elevated this single copper coin from ordinary to legendary, from pocket change to priceless, a coin whose origin is wrapped in wartime necessity, experimental metallurgy, and the unpredictable mechanics of the United States Mint during one of the most chaotic and transitional times in coin production history, and to understand why a 1944 wheat penny, a coin minted in the hundreds of millions and often considered common, could fetch such a massive valuation, we must travel back to the heart of World War II, when the US government, focused on military resources and rationing materials, made dramatic shifts in coinage composition, including the now famous switch in 1943 from traditional bronze cents to zinc-coated steel planchets, a necessary adaptation to conserve copper for wartime production. But by 1944, after widespread public complaints about the steel cents rusting, jamming vending machines, and being mistaken for dimes, the mint switched back to using spent brass shell casings melted down into copper alloy planchets, and while this might sound like a return to normalcy, the truth is that this transitional period opened the door to countless production anomalies, composition errors, and equipment mishandlings as the mints in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco scrambled to adjust their processes, resulting in one of the most fascinating and error-prone years in US coin history. And among the many pennies struck that year, one particular coin has risen above all others for its bizarre and unprecedented features, a 1944 wheat penny believed to have originated from the Philadelphia Mint that bears not only the wrong composition but a bizarre mishmash of die errors, planchette anomalies, and misstrikes so layered and so extreme that it has been declared unique by every major numismatic authority, beginning with its most famous and valuable characteristic: it was struck not on a bronze or brass planchette as intended, but on a leftover 1943 steel planchette, an occurrence so rare that only a few are known to exist from each mint, and this error alone has fetched prices upwards of $300,000 to $1.5 million for known examples in lesser grades. But what makes this particular 1944 steel penny so incredibly valuable and different from those previously documented is that it was not only struck on steel, but it displays an additional error of being double struck, with both strikes being off-center, creating a visual spectacle where Lincoln's portrait overlaps with itself, with one impression shifted approximately 15 degrees from the other, causing dramatic shadowing in the inscriptions, doubling in the date, and creating a twisted, almost surreal depiction of the obverse design. And if that weren't enough, the coin also displays unmistakable die clash marks on both sides, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in place. Transferring reverse elements like the wheat stalk outlines onto Lincoln's profile and obverse features like the lettering from "In God We Trust" faintly impressed into the reverse wheat lines, creating a layered ghost-like appearance that numismatists consider both beautiful and highly rare. And then comes the discovery that took this coin's legend to another level: an unusual die crack running from the rim through Lincoln's eye down toward his shoulder, known in collecting circles as a lightning crack, an accident that creates a raised, jagged line across the coin's surface and adds yet another unique and identifying feature. And when experts subjected the coin to advanced metallurgical testing, they discovered that the planchette not only contained the high-carbon steel content from 1943 but also trace amounts of zinc and even nickel, leading to speculation that this specific blank might not have been intended for a 1944 cent at all, but could have been a leftover or repurposed planchette from a foreign coin contract, perhaps from a coin intended for use in occupied Europe or Allied nations during wartime, raising the possibility that this coin is not just an error but an unintentional crossover from an entirely different production run, adding a layer of international mystery to its origins. And as if these multiple error types weren't enough to solidify its legendary status, the reverse of the coin includes a rarely seen rotated die error where the reverse design is misaligned by over 90 degrees in relation to the obverse, meaning when the obverse is upright, the reverse appears rotated sideways, a defect that is highly sought after on its own, but when found in conjunction with a steel planchette, double strike, die clash, die crack, and foreign alloy suspicion. It pushes the value of the coin into the stratosphere. And then there's the coin's condition, which defies belief, graded by multiple professional services as MS66 with full strike. Sharpness, original luster, and no signs of post-mint damage or cleaning, making it one of the finest examples of any era penny from the 1940s. And the fact that a coin with such a wild and chaotic production history could survive in near perfect shape for nearly 8 decades suggests it may have been plucked from circulation almost immediately, or perhaps set aside by a sharp-eyed mint employee or coin collector who recognized that something was profoundly unusual about it even before its full significance was understood. And when the coin finally surfaced in a private estate sale decades later and was sent for authentication, it quickly drew the attention of the world's leading coin historians, collectors, investors, and auction houses, each recognizing the unprecedented convergence of major era types and preservation quality. And as it went up for public auction, a storm of bidding erupted with parties from around the globe, including royal collectors, museum curators, hedge fund managers, and high-profile celebrities vying for the opportunity to own what many now call the ghost penny or steel shadow cent due to its haunting overlays and silvery sheen. And as the final hammer dropped, the world was stunned by the record-breaking result. A 1944 penny, which originally cost just 1 cent to produce, had sold for an astonishing $21 million, placing it among the most expensive coins of any denomination or era ever to be sold publicly. And its story continues to inspire treasure hunters, collectors, and everyday people to examine their change with new eyes, to pay attention to tiny differences in texture, strike, alignment, color, and sound, because while most people toss their pennies aside without a second thought, the story of this single 1944 wheat penny reminds us all that history, fortune, and mystery can still be hiding in plain sight. That miracles of mechanical error and historical circumstance can produce treasures of unimaginable worth, and that perhaps the next record-breaking coin is already out there, waiting to be discovered in a forgotten drawer, inherited collection, or pocketful of change. And as this coin now resides in a high-security vault and is showcased only under special conditions, it serves not just as a collector's dream but as a symbol of how the smallest, humblest objects can carry the deepest mysteries, the richest histories, and the greatest rewards, proving once again that in the world of numismatics, every penny truly does count and the tiniest details can lead to the biggest fortunes. So never stop searching, never stop learning, and always stay curious, because the next great discovery could be 1 coin away. Next, 1951's wheat penny USA coin. Where numismatic legends come to life, where the tiniest pieces of metal hold the weight of history, value, and unimaginable fortune, and today we are about to unravel the astonishing, nearly unbelievable story of the 1951's Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that at face value appears to be nothing more than a humble remnant of mid-century pocket change, yet in a turn of events that has shocked collectors, historians, and coin experts around the world, one specific specimen of this 1951's wheat penny has risen to legendary status after being authenticated and auctioned for an eye-popping $69 million, cementing its place as one of the most valuable and mysterious 1-cent coins ever discovered. And the reason behind this astronomical valuation is not found in gold or precious metal content, but rather in the unparalleled sequence of minting mistakes, production anomalies, and historically improbable circumstances that make this coin a once-in-a-millennium occurrence. So to understand what sets this 1951's penny apart, we must journey back to the post-war era of American minting, when the San Francisco Mint was transitioning from wartime coin production practices back to peacetime output, and during this period, aging mint equipment, fatigued dies, overworked staff, and increasing production targets all created a chaotic environment ripe for mistakes. And amidst the 136 million pennies struck at the San Francisco Mint that year, one coin emerged carrying a perfect storm of multiple overlapping mint errors that would turn it from a common collectible into a numismatic holy grail, beginning with the most prominent and immediately visible feature, an extreme double die obverse, where every element on the coin's front, especially the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1951, displays bold, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye, and unlike other double dies of the period, which often affect only select areas or are subtle in nature, this particular example is believed to have been caused by a catastrophic misalignment during the hubbing process, where the working die received multiple out-of-phase impressions, resulting in a near-mirror image doubling across the entire obverse. And if that weren't enough to excite collectors, the coin also bears a dramatic off-center strike of approximately 20%, pushing the entire design toward the bottom right of the coin, partially cutting off the rim but still leaving all key identifiers, including the mint mark and date, fully visible, a visual anomaly that in and of itself would command significant value, but paired with the doubling effect creates a truly surreal and eye-catching presentation. And when we turn to the reverse, we find even more rarities compounding this coin's uniqueness, starting with a rotated die error that causes the reverse image to appear turned roughly 135 degrees from the obverse orientation, an error that requires a substantial and rare misalignment of minting dies, and visible on this rotated reverse are strong die clash marks, where elements from the obverse have transferred onto the reverse die due to being struck together without a planchette in between, creating ghost-like imprints of Lincoln's features and lettering superimposed against the wheat stalks and inscriptions, E pluribus unum and 1 cent. But it gets even more fascinating when we consider the planchette itself, which experts determined is not composed of the standard 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc alloy used in 1951, but instead reveals trace levels of nickel and aluminum, strongly indicating the planchette was not originally intended for a US cent, and may have been a leftover from a foreign coinage contract or a test planchette from an internal experimental run. And advanced spectroscopy and X-ray fluorescence scans confirm the alloy composition is unlike any other authenticated 1951 cent, prompting further speculation that this coin may have been struck as part of a secret or unofficial production batch, possibly for internal calibration or planchette compatibility testing during a period when the mint was exploring cost-effective alternatives for future coin production. And adding even more to this coin's extraordinary profile is the repunched mint mark, RPM, where the S appears to have been punched more than once in visibly offset positions, suggesting manual adjustments made by a mint worker, a detail that usually increases collector value dramatically, but in this case contributes to the idea that multiple mishandling events occurred before the coin was ever struck, and microscopic analysis of the surface revealed additional anomalies such as die cracks, thin raised lines caused by stress fractures in the die, spanning from the rim through the letters in Liberty, as well as a small but distinct die chip in Lincoln's here, often referred to as a cud, which appears as a blob-like formation and is highly collectible on its own. And all these surface-level indicators point to a die that was overused, improperly maintained, or possibly being tested under extreme conditions, leading to questions as to whether this coin was struck under routine production or was part of a batch subjected to experimental pressures or unauthorized procedures, and all of this would be impressive enough. But what truly sends this coin into the stratosphere of value is its near-miraculous state of preservation, as it was graded mint state 68. Read by a top-tier grading service, meaning it retains nearly 100% of its original red copper luster, has no signs of wear or circulation, and exhibits striking detail with razor-sharp device separation and virtually flawless fields, a condition that is exponentially rarer among coins with major mint errors, as such errors are typically caught early and discarded, or if they do circulate, they suffer from wear and damage that drastically lowers their grade. But somehow this 1951 sweet penny not only survived with all its extreme errors intact but was preserved in such impeccable condition that some experts believe it may have been immediately pulled from the press by a mint employee and intentionally saved, due to its obvious abnormalities, which then raises even further questions about its origins, how it left the mint, and how it eventually entered the private collecting market decades later, because its reappearance came seemingly out of nowhere when it was brought to a private authentication service by a collector who reportedly found it in a relative's estate, stored among hundreds of other common wheat cents, where it had been sitting untouched in an envelope for over 60 years, and once authenticated, word of the coin spread rapidly, triggering a frenzy of interest from museums, elite collectors, and private investors, all vying for a chance to acquire what was quickly dubbed the most error-rich, high-grade, and historically mysterious Lincoln wheat penny ever discovered, and the buzz culminated in a highly publicized private auction where competing offers drove the price higher and higher, ultimately culminating in the jaw-dropping $69 million sale that made headlines around the world and changed the way collectors viewed the potential value of mid-century copper coins. And while this coin now rests in a high-security vault owned by a private collection trust, its legend continues to grow, inspiring countless enthusiasts to re-examine their 1951's pennies and indeed all their wheat cents with renewed attention, magnification, and curiosity, because as this extraordinary coin proves beyond any doubt, even the most overlooked and unassuming coin can turn out to be a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, packed with secrets, stories, and value far beyond what anyone ever imagined. Next, 1957 wheat penny USA coin, where the smallest coins hold the biggest secrets. And today we are diving deep into the jaw-dropping story of the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny that recently made headlines after being appraised and ultimately sold for an astounding $23 million, a coin that at first glance appears no different from the billions of other wheat pennies minted in the mid-20th century, but upon closer inspection reveals a remarkable series of mint errors, historical context, and accidental anomalies that transformed it from a common piece of copper into one of the most talked about and sought after coins in numismatic history. And for collectors, historians, and anyone fascinated by hidden treasure in everyday change, this is a coin that redefines what we thought we knew about the value of so-called ordinary coins, because the 1957 wheat penny, struck during a time when the US Mint was operating under post-war industrial pressure and massive production demands, should by all expectations have followed the standard specifications: 95% copper, 5% tin, and zinc, weighing 3.11 grams, and bearing the classic Victor D. Brenner design with Lincoln's bust on the obverse and the iconic wheat ears on the reverse. But the story of this particular 1957 specimen begins with a glaring deviation that sparked a storm of curiosity among experts. A double die obverse so extreme and precise that every element from the motto, "In God We Trust," to the word liberty and the date 1957 appears doubled with sharp separation visible even to the naked eye, creating a visual effect so distinct that it instantly ruled out mechanical doubling or die deterioration as potential causes. And what makes this doubling even more valuable is its unusual distribution. The letters and numbers are doubled not just horizontally, but with a slight clockwise rotation that experts say indicates a multiple hubbing error where the die shifted in a non-parallel alignment during its impression by the master hub. And as rare as doubled dies are, the uniqueness of this angular rotation makes it one of a kind. But that's just the beginning of what makes this coin truly exceptional, because further examination of the obverse surface revealed a rare struck-through error, likely caused by a piece of fiber or metal shaving from a mint worker's uniform or equipment that became lodged on the die face during the striking process, leaving behind an indentation across Lincoln's jacket and part of the lower field. And while struck-throughs are not uncommon in general, their presence on a coin already exhibiting a strong doubled die is extraordinarily rare, and it adds another layer of complexity to the coin's story. And then there's the planchet, A detail so overlooked by casual collectors yet so important to this coin's multi-million-dollar price tag, because metallurgical testing later revealed that the planchette composition was not 95% copper, but rather a strange hybrid alloy with elevated levels of silver and tin, pointing to the possibility that the coin was mistakenly struck on a leftover foreign planchette from another country's coinage contract, possibly Mexico or the Philippines, both of which had US mint involvement during that era, and this theory gains traction when considering that in 1957, the mint handled experimental runs and overseas minting simultaneously, making it plausible that a foreign blank could have slipped into the hopper for Lincoln cents, and when this happens, it creates an off-metal error that is extremely rare and highly collectible. But there's more, because when the reverse of the coin is examined under high magnification, several die cracks become apparent, extending from the rim inward through the wheat ears and into the fields around the 1-cent denomination, indicating that the die used to strike this side was damaged or worn at the time of striking, which is another strong indicator that this coin came from a late-stage die state, possibly near the end of the die's operational lifespan, and these cracks create slightly raised lines that disrupt the surface of the coin in a way that further proves it was not altered after minting but was truly the result of minting flaws. And adding to this die deterioration is a visible die chip lodged between the letters of E pluribus unum, forming a small but collectible blob of extra metal sometimes referred to by hobbyists as a cud, and collectors prize such chips because they vary in size and shape and make each era coin unique. But what truly sets this 1957 penny apart from even the most error-filled examples is that it was struck with a reverse die that appears to have been rotated approximately 180 degrees in relation to the obverse, a condition known as a rotated die error, which causes the reverse image to appear upside down when the coin is flipped horizontally. And although minor die rotation is occasionally found in circulation strikes, a full 180-degree rotation is exceedingly rare, and often associated with experimental or misaligned setups in the coining press, and this error becomes especially fascinating when considered alongside the coin's off-center strike, which pushes the entire design slightly toward the northeast quadrant of the coin, leaving a crescent of blank space on the opposite side and further confirming that the alignment of the dies and collar during striking was faulty or misadjusted. And it's this combination of multiple, layered minting errors, doubled die, struck through, off-metal planchette, die cracks, die chip, rotated die, and off-center strike, that makes the 1957 penny in question a statistical impossibility and a true unicorn in the world of coin collecting. But the story gets even better when we learn how the coin was discovered, not in a high-security vault or auction house, but in a humble showbox stored in a deceased grandfather's attic, where a young coin enthusiast stumbled upon it while going through a large batch of wheat cents, passed down through generations, and the coin immediately caught the attention of the teenager because of its odd coloration and strange doubling, prompting a submission to a grading service where it was not only authenticated but graded MS67 red, a near-perfect grade that indicated the coin had never been circulated and retained its original mint luster with blazing red surfaces, an astonishing preservation level given that most wheat cents, even rare ones, tend to show signs of wear, oxidation, or toning, and the immaculate state of this coin suggested it may have been pulled directly from a mint bag shortly after production and saved with great care, possibly by someone who noticed its unusual features even at the time of minting. And as news of the discovery spread across the numismatic world, interest in the coin surged to fever pitch, with collectors, museums, and even institutional investors entering bidding wars to acquire it, ultimately resulting in a private auction that shattered records for era coin sales when the hammer dropped at an eye-popping $23 million, making it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever sold and setting a new precedent for how mint errors, particularly when compounded and preserved in high-grade condition, can elevate a humble penny to the level of global treasure. And now collectors everywhere are scouring their coin jars, rolls, and inherited albums in search of similar anomalies, dreaming of that 1 in a billion chance. That a 1957 penny tucked away in an old drawer might just be the next numismatic miracle waiting to be found. Last 1945 wheat penny USA coin. That brings you the astonishing, hidden stories behind the smallest coins that have turned into multi-million-dollar treasures, and today we are exploring the incredible tale of the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny that shocked the numismatic world when it was appraised at a jaw-dropping $12 million. And while it may look like an ordinary copper cent from a post-war minting year, this particular coin is anything but ordinary, because buried beneath its modest surface are layers of rare mint errors, anomalies, and freak manufacturing events that combine to make it one of the most valuable and unique specimens ever discovered in the world of coin collecting. And when we talk about why certain coins become priceless, it's not always about their age or mintage numbers alone, but rather the perfect storm of circumstances, historical context, mint mishaps, die varieties, planchette oddities, and the unlikeliest survival against time, that turn an everyday cent into a collector's holy grail. And in the case of this astonishing 1945 penny, it all begins with the year itself, when the US Mint was transitioning out of the wartime composition of steel cents used in 1943 and back into standard bronze planchets. But there were still leftover steel planchets and other experimental materials being phased out, which opened the door for rare transitional errors to slip through the production process unnoticed. And that's exactly what is suspected to have happened with this particular coin. Because metallurgical analysis confirmed it was not struck on the typical 95% copper, 5% tin, and zinc alloy, but on an experimental planchette with an unusually high level of nickel, possibly left over from a test batch intended for foreign coinage or token production. And this off-metal composition instantly put the coin in a rare category. But that was just the beginning, because when experts examined the obverse under magnification, they immediately noted dramatic doubling on multiple devices, especially in the motto, "In God We Trust," the word liberty, and the date 1945, with separation so clean and distinct that it could only have resulted from a true double die hubbing process and not mechanical doubling or die fatigue. And what made this double die particularly extraordinary was its boldness across both the outer and inner parts of the devices, including areas where doubling is rarely seen, such as Lincoln's eye and jawline. And this points to a misalignment during the creation of the working die, a process which may have been rushed or performed under non-standard conditions due to post-war labor shortages and the urgency to resume normal minting operations. And if that weren't enough, further diagnostics of the coin revealed an unintentional struck-through error on Lincoln's shoulder, likely caused by a fragment of cloth, grease, or some other foreign material getting caught between the die and the planchette during the strike, resulting in an irregular, shallow impression that slightly distorts the field and gives the coin yet another layer of uniqueness. And this kind of anomaly, especially when combined with an already rare double die, creates an effect that is visually obvious even to casual observers, which significantly increases its appeal and value. But the coin also features subtle die cracks that run from the rim toward the center on both sides, most notably through the 1 cent and United States of America legends on the reverse, indicating that the die was nearing the end of its service life when the coin was struck. And these kinds of cracks can create raised lines on the surface of the coin, which again adds to its uniqueness and collectability. And when you add to this a noticeable die chip lodged between the letters of pluribus, forming what collectors affectionately call a cud, you begin to realize that this is not just a coin with one or two small mistakes, it's a cascading series of rare mint errors all converging on 1 cent, and collectors know that when you get multiple, unrelated errors on a coin, especially from a well-documented minting year like 1945, the chances of encountering another like it are astronomically low. And while most 1945 wheat pennies are common due to their high mintage, this single example escaped the mint's strict quality control at the time due to its errors being subtle enough at first glance to go unnoticed, especially in an era without advanced automated inspection systems. and when it finally resurfaced decades later in a dusty cigar box inherited by a coin enthusiast whose grandfather had worked in the San Francisco Mint during the 1940s, the odd tone of the metal and the doubling immediately raised suspicions, and after professional grading and authentication, the coin was certified as genuine and graded at an exceptional MS66, meaning it had retained nearly all of its original mint luster with minimal marks or wear, a preservation state so remarkable that it added even more to its valuation, and when it went to auction, fierce bidding from collectors, investors, museums, and institutions drove the final price to a staggering $12 million, placing it among the most expensive era coins ever sold. And what makes this tale so compelling is the possibility that there may still be more out there, coins from the same batch, struck with the same defective die pair, or others bearing experimental planches, hiding in plain sight among junk drawers, old piggy banks, estate collections, or forgotten rolls stored away in basements and attics, waiting for someone with a keen eye to recognize the telltale signs of a multi-million-dollar treasure. And if there's one takeaway from this unbelievable story, it's that extraordinary coins can hide in the most ordinary places, and the 1945 penny that now commands a $12 million price tag proves beyond doubt that mint errors, however small or accidental they may appear, can transform a coin from pocket change into a historic and priceless artifact.